Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the South Donetsk direction, because the most important updates are coming exactly from this territory. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their position significantly and to take under control the western part of the citadel. As you can see, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. Once again, as a result of clashes, the fields between the city of Vuhledar, Pavlovka and Prichistovka were captured. We're talking about this part. And also, as a result of offensive, first the Russians took under control the territory of hospital in the southwestern part. Also, the Russians took under control the positions around some school or in this high-rise building area, and the Russians took under control the territory of armed forces of Ukraine that used to be under complete control by the Ukrainians and that Ukrainians were using for evacuation. Summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion that starting on the 1st of October, the Ukrainians, the armed forces of Ukraine, the forces and the units of the 72nd Mechanized Brigade lost any possibilities to escape the encirclement, lost any possibilities to withdraw their positions in the direction of Bohoyavlenka. From now on, the Russians control everything and the Ukrainians have no chances. For example, in this video we can see how the Russian soldiers were entering the southwestern part of Vuhledar. As you can see, the Russians are very careful because they don't know for sure whether the territory was secured completely. Maybe there are some Ukrainians in the building, but when the Russians discovered the situation is okay, they raised the flag. For example, this Russian flag was raised in the western part, exactly above this building. Anyway, the most important thing that I would like to point your attention that when the Russians were raising their flags, we see almost no resistance from the Ukrainian forces. Ukrainians understand that most likely they are captured, most likely most of them will become prisoners of war, so for them the war has already ended. They don't want to risk, they just want to wait the moment when they will be captured by the Russians. Obviously, on the territory of Vuhledar, there are still a lot of Ukrainians who don't want to be captured by the Russians and who still try to break through the encirclement in the direction of Bohoyavlenka. But as for the village of Bohoyavlenka, the situation in that direction is also very, very difficult. For example, according to different neutral mappers, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their position significantly in the northwestern direction from this mine South Donbas number 3. So this territory was captured by the Russians during the previous few days. Significant progress. If you remember, just yesterday, some pro-Russian sources reported about the same, and today, on the 1st of October, we got confirmation from some neutral resource. Anyway, according to information we have, currently the distance between the Russian positions and the Ukrainian forces in the village of Bohoyavlenka is less than 1 kilometer. So somewhere on this line there are first Russian squads. According to information we have, currently there is an active assault operation, and very likely that during the next day or during the next few days the Russians will be able to answer the territory of Bohoyavlenka and to force the Ukrainians to fall back from this village as well. So there are very high chances that the Russians are going to begin the battle for Bohoyavlenka much earlier than the end of the battle for Vuhledar. And this is very important because the Ukrainians are completely blocked on the territory of the citadel. There are once again from 1 to 1.5 thousand soldiers. They are completely useless. This is a very big media loss for the Ukrainians and significant media victory for the armed force of Russian Federation. So let's wait. Probably today on the 1st of October, this evening, the Russians will raise the final flag on the territory of Vuhledar. If the Russians are not be able to do this on the 1st of October, obviously they will finish this operation tomorrow on the 2nd. Now let's move further. And let's talk about the Kurakhove direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation, and the situation for the Ukrainians is getting worse and worse. First, let's talk about geolocations that confirm additional Russian progress. For example, in this video, we can see a number of FPV drone attacks from the armed forces of Ukraine, and several attacks on Russian vehicles, Russian equipment. And for example, exactly in this part of the video, just a second, in this this one part of the video, we can see FPV drone attack on the Russian edge positions on the territory of Tsukurina. So the video, this episode was geolocated exactly in this point, and this video confirms additional Russian progress. So summarizing everything, just during one day, during the previous 24 hours, we got confirmation of geolocated and video confirmation of additional Russian progress on the territory of Tsukurina. Furthermore, as you can see, according to the geolocations, as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions between Tsukurina itself and the mine of Vasilia Velikova. So these fields, this territory was captured by the Russians and secured also according to different neutral mappers. Furthermore, the Russians managed to improve their positions between the mine itself and the village of Gostraya. So this territory was also captured and this information was confirmed. Furthermore, this morning we started receiving updates that the Russians decided to move further deep inside the territory of Ukraine, and currently there are very heavy clashes already on the territory of Izmailovka. And if the Russians are able to take this part of the front line under complete Russian control, this will bring significant problems to the Ukrainians, and then we're going to start talking about another cauldron on the Pokrovsk direction, and this is going to be a cauldron for the Ukrainians that are located in the cities, towns and villages like Kurakhove, Gornyak, Zaryane, and so on. So the situation once again is very difficult. Now let's move further and let's talk about the south and Selydove direction, and the situation is very bad for the Ukrainians in this area as well. Today the Russian sources published the video on how they were FPV droning the Ukrainians in the southern part of this city, and we remember the rule: if we see drones which most likely in the same direction, the Russians are going to move. And as you can see, according to the geolocation, the Russians were FPV droning these farms, so most likely during the next few days the Russians will improve their positions along the railways this way, as we discussed in the previous videos, and after the Russians are able to improve their positions this way, they will move further in the direction of farms. Furthermore, the Russians have already established complete FPV drone control over the road between, let's say, the city of Kurakhove itself and Selydove. For example, in this video we can see how the Ukrainians were trying to send some tank to counterattack the Russians or to attack the Russian positions from hidden positions, but the tank was discovered and was attacked by the Russian FPV drone. Probably that was Leopard in the video. So anyway, the Ukrainians now realize that they have no chances to redeploy forces from Kurakhove in the north, because this road is under complete Russian fire control. Very bad updates are coming for the Ukrainians in the northern part of Selydove. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions as well. Furthermore, we received video that confirms Russian progress on the ground. For example, according to different mappers, another stronghold was captured by the Russians, and this information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian mappers. So this is the progress for one night. As for the northern part of Selydove, the Ukrainian sources published the video. The forces of 68th Jaeger Brigade published the video how they were FPV droning and attacking the Russian convoy with a significant number of armored vehicles and tanks. The Ukrainians attacked few vehicles, and as a result of these attacks, one or two vehicles of armored forces of Russian Federation were damaged and destroyed. So as you can see, the Russians during the previous 3 days or 4 days had significant progress exactly in this area. Let's improve their positions, the map once again from the 27th of September. On the 27th, the Russians took under control Marinovka. Then the Russians improved their positions. Then they improved their positions once again. On the 30th of September, the Russians reached this intersection of roads, and on the 1st of October we got first geolocations that confirms Russian control. So the village of Selydove is already on 60 or 70% encircled by the Russians, and the process is getting closer and closer to another cauldron. As soon as the Russians are able to take under control farms, as we discussed 5 minutes ago, we're talking about this area. Let's add this area to map. And as soon as the Russians are able to move further in the western direction, in the northern part of Selydove, something like this, from this moment, the Russians will create additional cauldron, another encirclement of the Ukrainians on the territory of Selydove by establishing complete fire and FPV drone control over the territory to the west of Selydove. We're talking about the village of Vishnyovo. And from this moment, we will be able to start counting days when Selydove is going to fall completely. Now let's move further. We have additional changes on the ground in the Toretsk agglomeration. According to different mappers, as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the vicinity of Nilipovka. I'll remind you that just yesterday, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, they managed to secure and to clear the village of Nilipovka. And today, on the 1st of October, we got additional changes on the ground in Russian favor, which makes the Ukrainian control and the Ukrainian situation in this direction much worse. Now let's move further. As for the Chasiv Yar direction, we haven't received anything special, just regular Russian military and aviation activity. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians were bombing the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on the line between Chasiv Yar and the northern Kupiansk direction. Now let's talk about the positions in the southern Kupiansk direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the south of Makeivka, and as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the direction of Novosadova. At least this information was provided by different neutral mappers. Also, this information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian mappers. So, summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion that the next target of the armed force of Russian Federation in this direction is to take under control the village of Novosadova, and after that, the Russians will continue moving further in the southern direction with the purpose to force the Ukrainians to fall back from the village of Terny, then Yampolovka, and then Tarskoye. Most likely, all these villages will be captured by the Russians during the October. As for the northern Kupiansk direction, we haven't received anything significant. Volchansk direction, today we got additional details of Russian offensive operation in the direction of aggregate plant. We will not watch the video, but that's, as we discussed in the previous video, Russian attempt failed. A significant number of losses. Basically, the Russians were ambushed on the territory of aggregate plant. On the other side, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on the territory of the Volchansk citadel, which still remains almost on the complete Ukrainian control. The Russians control probably just 10% of the citadel, the rest is under complete Ukrainian control. So we can't say for sure what is going to be next in the Volchansk direction, but obviously the previous few days were the worst days for the armed forces of Russian Federation because they lost a lot of territories. As for the Kursk direction, we haven't received anything special, just few videos of how the Russians were attacking and destroying Ukrainian multiple launch rocket system that Ukrainians were using to attack the territory and to attack deep inside the territory of Russia. As you can see, as a result of Iskander strike, another temporary deployment point of armed forces of Ukraine was destroyed. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.